Hello, Night Nation. Trace Trelko here. Welcome into the Sons of UCF Live. Who wowed during UCF's Pro Day? We are talking about that. Someone really wants to tackle Dylan Gabriel, and making sense of baseball start as conference play gets underway. It is underway right now in Tampa. Let's welcome in a son of UCF, Adam sans Mike tonight. Greetings, Adam.
Thanks, Trace. Yeah, shout out to Mike. Mike's got some more important stuff to do tonight, so we're thinking of you, buddy. But we'll hold it down for you here tonight. Pro Day, Trace. Always a big day when you see the underwear Olympics. So excited to break down all of the cone drill, the shuttle drill. I think there was some sort of a high jump situation, all of which you always use in football. So can't wait to break all that down with you.
I am coming to you from the Denver, Colorado Bureau, out for a couple of days. Happy Easter to everyone. I was going to tell Mike, I put in a full day of training today, and then I was going to remind him, of course, that it's April Fool's Day. So maybe I didn't put in a full day.
The altitude training there, though, Trace, if you want to get in a couple of, 5280, I think that's the number there, right? If you want to get in some altitude runs, I think Mike could be proud of you.
Well, I'll see what I can do over the next couple of days. You mentioned the Pro Day at UCF. A couple of standouts, and one Jacob Harris really wowing the Twitterverse today.
Yeah, let me put. I got the chart here, Trace. We'll throw up. This is the official chart time. You see all the different, I guess, events, for lack of better words, or stations that the guys competed in. And yeah, Jacob Harris just jumps off the table. I think he. Obviously, we knew he was big, right? So 6'5", 219, that wingspan's pretty big, 40-inch verts. And there was a kind of a running thing, right? We had Jacob on the show at the Sons of UCF podcast. We had Trey on, and they had a little debate about who was going to run the fastest time. And the money was on Jacob, but it turns out that was smart money. 4.38 40 time for Jacob. He was certainly a standout. His numbers just pop off the page when you look at it, and especially in this view right here.
Yeah, he really came in impressive. He put together a good Pro Day. How much stock do you put in Pro Day? But you want to do better in it than not, of course. So certainly he had a good day. Aaron Robinson had a good day as well. His 40 time popping.
Yeah, another one that I think I saw Jim Nagy, who is the director of the Senior Bowl, said essentially Aaron Robinson will not last past the first 50 picks. Which is a pretty good statement, obviously. The only thing you wonder about with him, and again, I'm not an NFL evaluator. 5'11", essentially from a size standpoint, 186 is that durable enough to hold up in the NFL season? A now 17-game NFL season announced this week by the league. That'll be the unknown with him, but his measurables, again, just hop off the charts at you. He's a name that you've been hearing. It's interesting. Richie Grant was more of sort of the buzz name you heard. And I don't think Richie did anything to hurt himself today, but I think Aaron Robinson definitely did some stuff to grab some headlines and grab some attention today.
And maybe someone, let's not overanalyze Pro Day, but someone perhaps whose stock took a little bit of a ding today was Marlon Williams.
It's interesting. I mean, let's look at Marlon's numbers here, right? I think if you look at these numbers, is there anything here that surprises you, though? I mean, he was never a burner. He was never a top speed guy. So to run a 4.59, which was I think it was 4.61 initially, and now they've changed it to a 4.59. To run a 4.5 isn't surprising. He was never a burner. If there's a number here that surprises me, I actually thought he would do more on the bench. 14 reps at 225 was surprising. He's obviously a bigger guy. I thought he might do more at the bench, but he told Mike and I this year that he was trying to really lean up and he wanted to get to 205 by the time the Pro Day came around. They clocked him here at 209. So while I get that he doesn't have those eye-popping numbers and scouts may look at that and say, oh my goodness, he didn't run a 4.3. Did you expect him to? I mean, I think if you cut the tape on, you're going to see a guy who's going to be a possession receiver, is going to absorb contact, going to make plays for you. So I get he didn't run those numbers, but in the end, if you want to look at the tape, I don't think that hurt you. I don't think you saw anything from the Pro Day that we didn't see every game in Marlon Williams, and I didn't expect him to run top end speed. So for me, while some may say that hurt him, I think it's exactly what you expected, and I think the film hopefully will show what Marlon can do from an NFL standpoint.
Yeah, you mentioned that right there. Maybe the Pro Day doesn't wow, but he's got a whole film reel of spectacular plays for UCF. Whereas Trey Nixon, missing a lot of time because of injury, doesn't quite have that same volume Trey Nixon, one of the people that was given to us as a media avail today, along with Jacob Harris, Aaron Robinson. And let's start off with Richie Grant. I had opportunity to ask him how UCF prepared him for his next step, a possible pro career in the NFL.
I came in, wide-eyed, didn't know what to expect. Just playing ball. All I know is to play ball, go to school, stuff like that. But you learn so much and you grow so much, especially me being, a leader. No matter what room I'm in, I'm considered a leader. So all the qualities of a leader, knowing how to deal with, 100 personalities, knowing how to make a stand on what you believe in, and doing everything that you're supposed to do in the coach's eyes. But decision-making, just leading the group. I feel like everything I've been through at UCF is setting me up for, one day I'm gonna be a father. One day, I'll be a husband. I have kids. I can, get them some of those values and lessons that I learned here. So basically, let me just say I went from a boy to a young man.
Good to hear him. Boy, we're going to miss him in 2021, aren't we?
This is so tough, Trace, because you look at these guys and you realize how old we are. Like, I feel like it was just yesterday you were seeing some of these kids walk in, and you especially, right? You're in front of these guys through the media stuff, and you see them as true freshmen, fumbling over words, not doing the best quote unquote interviews. And then you see them kind of mature and grow into men like this, where you're now talking to them and they're talking about stuff like that. I think Richie did himself some good stuff. Again, Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl said he heard rave reviews from scouts about Richie Grant, particularly in the DB drills. So again, did he have that number that jumped off the page at you? But no, probably not. But I think he's the guy that he's been really consistent throughout. He's been high on scouts' list. I think he's going to be a top 2-3 round pick this year. His name is out there. And you hear that maturity right there. And you think, if I'm a GM for an NFL team and I sit down with this kid and I ask him some questions, and he's got that maturity and that perspective, and he's got measurables, and he's got tape, and he's got speed, he's got size, why would I not draft him? You'd almost have to talk me out of it, especially if that was a position of need for my team.
All 32 teams represented out there at the Nicholson Fieldhouse today for this, evaluating 10 players. You talked about them on Monday, Sons of UCF. Another one that we mentioned stood out, Jacob Harris. I asked him earlier, it's not the bite that we're going to use, but I asked him, is it possible that he could be in any better shape? And he laughed at that, and he said that he could. Guy just looks ripped and ready, doesn't he? But one of the things that he alluded to, and it seems that it's come up in conversation that we'll hear from him, is that he is open to playing the tight end position.
It's kind of split right now, as far as what I'll be used as at the next level. I could be a wide receiver. I could be a tight end just because of my frame and my size. Obviously I'd have to put on, a little bit more weight, but it's something that, I've done in the past and I'm not opposed to. But, I'm most likely going to be a special teams contributor, early on, which, I embrace that role. So I just think, my biggest asset right now is my versatility. You can throw me anywhere. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to embrace that role.
Yeah, Mike and I kind of joking.
He is open to playing the tight end position.
Yeah, he's like a human pterodactyl. I mean, how did that get put together is what you ask yourself, right? Yeah. And listen, the knock on Jacob, and I think he knows this, and it was called out. I saw it today in a few posts. Was his hands, right? He had a couple of drops throughout his UCF career. Today seemed like solid catch radius from Jacob. No drops from what I think people reported. But he might be one of those guys. He's a late bloomer. Everyone forgets he was not a natural football player. He was a soccer player. He actually went to school for soccer, changed his mind, left FGCU, decided to try the football route, literally just walked up to UCF's campus and was like, hey, I might be able to catch the football. What do you guys think? And here he is, 4 years later. He's kind of got that, Jeremy Shockey, just 1 year of football, kind of raw sort of vibe about him. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be that kind of player. I'm not saying that's his apex, but he's got that potential. And with that size, with the speed, with the quickness, with the strength, somebody's going to draft him, Trey. Somebody is going to take a flyer on him in those later rounds, or he'll be a highly coveted undrafted free agent, and he'll go on special teams, which he excelled at UCF, and he'll probably make a few plays. And he's a guy that I really think may end up sort of being the steal of the draft from a UCF standpoint when it's all said and done. And he may be the one guy that we look back in this draft and go, who would have thought that Jacob Harris would be the main guy? And that's not a knock on Jacob, but I think his measurables are going to definitely put him in a lot of conversations.
And remember something about him that's reminiscent of Taco Fall. Taco Fall didn't start playing basketball till much later. And Jacob Harris was a soccer player, which of course also explains that he's in peak physical condition. So, he adapted to the game of football. There were some moments, though, of course, where he would have some drops that would drive Night Nation crazy. Question that I asked on my Twitter at Signpez, how many former Knights do you think will be selected in April's NFL draft? 52% said 3, 41% said 4 or more. So here on Thursday, April 1st edition of Sons of UCF Live, how many you got? 10 today at Pro Day. How many do you have being selected in the NFL draft?
I'm going to go with at least 4. So I'm going to go with at least 4. I'm going to go with the 3 DBs. For sure. I feel like, Tay Gowan, the defensive back position is so tough in the NFL. If you find a guy with some size, some strength, some speed, I think you're going to catch on. So I'm going to go 3 DBs. I'm going to go with A-Rob, Richie Grant, and I'm going to go Tay Gowan. And then I'm going to go Jacob Harris. I think a team will take a late round flyer on him just to lock him up before he hits the undrafted free agent market, because he may be a unique prospect. So why not waste it? If you're I don't know. I'm just throw teams out here. I have no inside info. If you're a Green Bay Packers, if you're Kansas City Chiefs, you've got a pretty veteran team and you've got a late round pick and you don't have a ton of needs. Why not take a flyer on this kid and see if he can't turn into something? So give me 4 for sure. I think Marlon is going to be on that line. I think he's going to be. I think if you cut the tape on, you're going to see a kid who can compete. I think he will impress some GMs. So he would be my sort of tweener at the 5th spot. So I'm going to go 4 for right now.
At Lonely B UCF went with 4. Richie, A-Rob, Tay, and Marlon. Of course, that comment came in before we saw what Jacob did today. I've got 4. I'm not sure Marlon's going to make that cut. I think Jacob played his way in, but I won't be surprised if it's 5. And that'd be a pretty big number for UCF during the NFL draft.
Yeah, if Mike were here, he'd ask you how many Knights have ever been drafted in the most in the years, and I don't know the answer. I hope you don't either, by the way. I think 4 feels comfortable. I think Trey worked his way in there, or Jacob worked his way in there. But Trey's got some speed. Marlon's got some size. You never know, man. You never know. I guess that's the thing with the NFL draft. All it takes is one. It takes one team to say this is the thing that we need. But I feel like 4 is a lock. Tay Gowan's the one that's really, really interesting to me because, like I said on the show this week, we didn't see a lot of him. And as a cornerback, it's tough to evaluate that because he's not on film a ton. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, right? Does that mean they're not throwing to him because he's such a lockdown corner that they don't want to test him? Or, does the fact that there's not a lot of film hurt him? He only played the one season, had some junior college stuff, seems pretty fast, seems pretty quick, seems pretty strong. Not a lot of tape on him. So he's the one that really intrigues me the most because I think while he's got the talent, he's got the skill set, and he's got some of the measurables, he's an unknown. So Tay's going to be one that I'm really interested to see where he ends up falling in the draft.
He's got the compelling backstory as well, opting out because of COVID, out of family concerns, and that's something that I think is part of the story that he'll tell scouts and NFL teams. Interesting that it was more than just your regular characters in the media Zoom with the players today. It had a bit of an international feel. Reporters from Brazil and Argentina hopping on. So Night Nation, that brand, is a global brand with a lot of interest from reporters all over the world today during those Zooms for Pro Day. And
let's just say that how great is it that there is a Pro Day? I mean, the fact that obviously a lot of the stuff got canceled last year, a lot of guys lost opportunities. The fact that this was able to be put on today and there were people there, and yes, that's not your traditional NFL combine and that's not happening. I get all that, but it's just fantastic to see the Knights, and kudos to UCF. I don't know if this is a Mohajir thing, Trace, but I feel like over the last 6 to 8 weeks, there has been a concerted effort to extend a better hand to the varsity Knights, the alumni Knights. You saw a bunch of guys at practice. And then for Pro Day, you saw special jerseys and shirts and hats and gloves and shorts were made. It was all over social media. I don't know if that's a Mahadra thing. I know that he has the phrase NLI till you die, and I know he's new here, but I thought that was a nice touch to welcome these guys back. Gus Malzahn was there, who did not coach any of these guys, and I don't know if that's a Mahadra influence or not, but I think what UCF's done the last 6 to 8 weeks to really embrace the alumni and some of the veteran guys who have left, I think it's been really cool, and today was just another great example of that.
If, though, a missed opportunity, some fans, the diehards, of course, clamoring that it be simulcast,
live stream, live stream,
and with as much work as they're doing broadcasting on ESPN Plus, and with no competing home games in any of the sports on a Thursday, it seemed like that was a missed opportunity. Fans already clamoring for a live stream of the spring game a little over a week from now, but UCF has not committed to that publicly yet. Spring camp, though, continuing amidst pro day. We've had a couple of more practices, more than halfway, 2/3 of the way there. Spring game coming on Saturday, April 10th. We're seeing more installation of the offense. You heard from Coach Malzahn. He speaks on Saturday to the media. Of course, the most important thing in these open practices is the opportunity for high school students to come out and check out the Knights. A good opportunity for them and a good move by Coach Malzahn and his staff. I think we got a couple of plays to overanalyze. If you want to cue up one of those, Adam, and see what we've got. I'm not the best videographer in the world, but I do my best with my cell phone. What have you got?
Oh, Trace, don't you knock yourself here. I mean, if there's anything that we can overanalyze here, we will do that here at the Sons of UCF. I don't even know what this one is. We'll open it up here together. We'll all find out as a group here. Let's see what we got here. This seems to be one of those drills. Trace, I love this thing. I got to get one of these sticks with the ball on it because I feel like this is just where the future is going. The stick with the ball here. I don't know who this player is, by the way. I'm not so sure what the goalpost did to him here, but he seems to be really upset about it. This one guy behind him seems to be holding his jersey. Not a lot of action in this shot. Trace, can we get some more action next time?
We get what we get out there, but this is as close as to any action that you could get. So that was where I was closest. And, I thought it was worth 10, 15 seconds up on Twitter. I think the other clip, though, may be a little bit more action, a little bit more exciting, right?
Yeah, this one seems much more exciting, Trace. Let's see what we got here. Hold on, we're loading. We're loading here. There we go. We got some drills here. These are some looks like some defensive backs perhaps there. I see number 39. Maybe this is wide receivers. I don't even know what we're doing here. We're running some sort of concept. I see some blocking. A lot of good stuff. Let's play that again, Trace, because there's just a lot going on here. We got some combos here. I don't know where's the quarterback. Is there a quarterback here? I don't see one.
No quarterbacks here. They're on the other field.
Oh, they're busy?
They weren't doing a whole lot either.
Yeah. Yeah, this one guy hugged it. Yeah, this one guy hugged the other guy. That seems cool.
Remember, while we get to see more than we did under Coach Heupel, it isn't necessarily the case that we get to see much. So, you get to see a little more than calisthenics and warming up, but you don't get to see a whole lot.
I mean, it's better than nothing, right? I mean, it gives us something to overanalyze. Lonely Bumblebee, which I think is Mario, he wants a breakdown on the ball snapper guy. And that's a great question because you wonder, how do you get that job when they line up the UCF crew before the practice and they're like, okay, you stay with the DBs today. And is there somebody who's like, and by the way, you're going to be the stick ball guy? You wonder if is that a coveted position? Is that not a coveted position? Trace, these are the questions we need you to ask when you're back on practice field. Find the ball stick guy and just ask him, like, did you volunteer or is this the last job available? So just so we can get some clarity from Mario.
Every once in a while you get within earshot of some of these guys. If I find myself close enough to ask that question, I will. Saturday, open spring practice to the public in the bounce house. That's practice number 12. Friday's practice 11. Next week, Monday 13, 14, leading up to the big one, the spring game, which will be just a little bit more than a spring practice, but not a whole lot more.
Well, Trace, I think this is actually a good question. Maybe you are there for many of these practices. Michael Casey, too, wants to know what difference are you seeing between this staff and the previous staff? So, again, I know you only get 15, 20 minutes of time, but is there anything appreciable that you're seeing that says, wow, this is a big change from what you saw under the Heupel regime?
Nah, I mean, I would be inferring what players are saying about it being more organized and a lot of energy. We've talked about no music being played, at least not the practices we were at. They're out there coaching the kids. It looks like, according to Coach Malzahn, you're seeing a lot of good enthusiasm. You're seeing buy-in from players. And And with the change that have happened with coaching staffs, that is the best message, I think, to come out of this spring camp. But no discernible difference, I would say. Not from the vantage that we have. We don't get to roam the field. We're cordoned off and end, and you get what you can see. But good energy. I would concur with what the players are saying, and it's got a good vibe out there, even without all of the music blaring.
Dylan Gabriel described it as more organized. Is that something that's visible to you and the rest of sort of your media brethren there, that it's maybe a more organized operation?
Other than that, you hear Coach Malzahn being more vocal. It's not something that I pick up on clearly in the 20 minutes that we're in there. So I'll take Dylan Gabriel's word on it. They're practicing more frequently than we get to see, certainly. So nothing to my eye. Again, just echoing that it's got good energy, and you can hear Coach Malzahn over his speaker. Media opportunity midweek following the Wednesday practice with a name we don't know a whole lot about. Tennessee transfer who's was caught up in all of that, right? He transfers in while most of the former UCF staff transfers to Tennessee. He being Brandon Johnson. He talked about what playing with Dylan Gabriel has been like so far during spring camp.
Awesome. DG is awesome, man, and great spirit, fun-loving dude, man. He's funny, and I mean, it goes without saying, but he's a great quarterback, man. And, throws a great ball. He's a great leader, and I'm just excited to keep on going with it.
I'm interested to see what he's going to do, a veteran presence with UCF. There's a lot of changeover in the wide receiver core. We've talked about all the guys in pro day, right? Marlon Williams, Trey Nixon, Jacob Harris, not going to be on the field with Dylan Gabriel in 2021. And we know Flash, we've talked to him recently, but I think he's a bit of a wild card in Brandon Johnson.
Someday there's going to be a 30 for 30 on the Brandon Johnson, Cody Burns, Mike Merritt sort of just triangle of what happened in that 6-week period, because it seems like it was like a Kevin Bacon 7 degrees thing. But if you're listening to the folks who are able to go to these open practices on Saturdays, and you follow these folks on the Twitter sphere, Cossack Advisor is one of my go-tos for good analysis on these things. Brandon Johnson's name is a name that pops up all the time. Every spring practice that we've had that's been open, people have said that he's catching the ball really well. He runs really good routes. He's been reliable, dependable. Seems like if you chart these things, he's running with the one, so the sort of the first unit, sort of a veteran presence, which, there's a lot of young, maybe not young guys in terms of class that they're in, but in terms of time on field. And he's a name that keeps coming up, Trace. He may be, that sort of security blanket, if you will, if him and Dylan can continue to develop that rapport, just based on his savvy as a veteran and running routes and making plays. But he's a name you've been hearing a lot about, so I'm really curious to see how he integrates into the offense.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing what he can do too, and again brings a veteran presence, and that may be something that Dylan Gabriel needs. But it's all about the chemistry, right? That he forms with these wide receivers, and he's got that connection with Jalen, and Brandon's going to have to work himself into that chemistry with Dylan. But he speaks highly of his teammates, and UCF is the right fit for him in this year. So. We welcome him and look forward to seeing what he's going to do on the field. Another guy that I'm looking forward to seeing that we had opportunity to speak with on Wednesday was Tremont Morris-Brash. He is a character. He knows how to work the microphone. And he was asked a question, a lot of these pressers become predictable, not only in the questions sometimes asked, certainly, that follow a certain pattern, but you expect certain answers to come. And he was asked what he would love to do and accomplish during the spring game, and he drew some chuckles with his response.
I know I can't, but a thing I want to do, I want to tackle Dylan Gabriel, but I know I can't. And in the last scrimmage, like all the QBs were live but him. And I'm just like, he needs to get hit. But that's my guy though. It's all love. But that's one thing I want to do. But I know it'll probably never happen at my time here. So I got to stop looking forward to that.
He needs to get hit.
Listen, Tremont shouldn't surprise him. This was the kid who pulled a hat out of the bag during the high school All-American game, and I think he declared he was going to the best school in Florida. So I think we kind of knew he had a personality. but we hadn't seen a bunch of it on the field. This may be a shocker to some. So with respect to my guy JP Gilbert, every year I've got the Marlon Williams Breakout Player of the Year award that I hand out. This could be the guy that really has that year right here. Somebody I saw somebody tweeting out or mentioning that, he had mentioned, and Trace was probably in this interview, maybe you can confirm, that he came into camp a little heavy last year.
Yeah.
And that's something that we heard from Chris Deloche when we had Deloche on the show, is that him specifically, Christopher Deloche, and that Tremont Morris-Brash was in the same boat. Neither of those guys thought we were playing last year. So they weren't maybe taking care of themselves as well as they thought they should have. They were kind of preoccupied. And I think Tremont kind of alluded to the fact that he basically spent all of last season getting himself into shape just to play football. And by the time he did that, the season was over. So I think he's a guy that, if he can put it all together this year, we saw flashes. I think his best game at UCF was probably that Gasparilla Bowl. If he can get back to that form with maybe a more attacking style defense. I also like that he mentioned, and I've been kind of harping on this one for a while. He mentioned having a specific coach for his position. So usually the D-line coach is one person for the tackles and the ends. UCF has split that responsibility this year. There's now an end/rush coach. And Tremont mentioned how much he's really enjoyed having somebody specifically talking technique with him, talking things that are specific to that role. So JP Gilbert, just forewarning, we may go Tremont Morris-Brash for our Marlon Williams Breakout Player of the Year award.
You talked about coming into camp more than he wanted to weigh. He came in 280, dropped 30 pounds to get down to 250. And he's not the only guy that has talked about this, as you mentioned. And remember, the contrast that they are all talking very high about the new strength and conditioning coach, Chris Dawson. So a more fit team with a full spring camp under their belt, that could be a difference maker. But remember, all teams were impacted a great deal by COVID in 2020. Some had all of their spring camp wiped out. UCF got a little in 2020, but between the nutrition and the available weight room equipment and free weights and the like, it's not the same as the regimen that they have when they are on campus. So certainly sending players back home, when you look at it in the rearview mirror, impacted a lot of players. We heard it from Kalia Davis, too, opting out. The last meaningful game he played in, you mentioned there, the Gasparilla Bowl. So think about what it takes not to be in shape, but to be in football shape. And these guys have been raving about being pushed hard in the weight room. So that's something that, could be a big difference maker during the 2021 season.
Yeah, every player every year says they're in the best shape of their life, right? I mean, it's like it's the usual mantra. But I think these guys, I just like how serious they're taking it, right? And I don't want to. This isn't meant to be accusational in that respect, but it just seems like there's a better aura of seriousness this year, of just understanding kind of what they have to do, and the guys are more bought in. And I'm not saying that's a knock on previous coaching staffs, and maybe it's a bit about the change, a bit about where we are as a team and the things that I've all gone through. But I think Tremont's a great example of it, basically saying, hey, I was not where I wanted to be last year. I dropped 30 pounds, and by looking at that video, it looks like he's kept it off. He looks like he's in great shape. It looks like hopefully he does not hit Dillon Gabriel, because if he does, it could be a problem. But I mean, it seems like these guys are buying in, and they're doing what they need to do. And not that they were complacent last year, but if they were, you could understand it. And if we're gonna be stout on defense, Trace, Mike and I talked about this in the show this week. We did charge on, charge off. We had 26 sacks as a team last year. And I asked Mike, charge on, charge off. We're going to have more than that. If we're going to go charge on, I think Mike and I both did on this one, Tremont Morris-Brash has to be somebody who gets 7, 8, 10 sacks this year if we're going to be able to approach that number.
And we've seen things, heard things, and have inferred things about a little bit of shade on the former staff. Maybe, though, when you're putting a contrast of Josh Heupel and some of the members of his staff with the staff and with Coach Malzahn, just the respect factor that they have for a Coach Malzahn, and maybe being away from the game and impacted as they were during the 2020 season, maybe there is a greater attention to detail, maybe a greater respect for the game and the coaches that we will see. They certainly are saying all of the right things during spring camp, and it continues on now the last week. Open practice Saturday, a couple more practices during the week, and then the spring game. So more to analyze over the week ahead. I guess one question to be thinking about is, what questions have you had answered perhaps during spring. Be something to think of going into the spring game that we can talk about next week. Shifting gears now to volleyball. Volleyball wins the East, and they are now in the conference tourney. They swept the Cows, which is always good. Baseball going on now. UCF with a 3-2 lead over the Cows. Top of the 8th in Tampa, so some war on I, 4 points up for grabs. UCF plays Tulane, who they played earlier in the season, games that didn't matter in conference play, but did, of course, go towards UCF's overall record of 14-1. And it's a condensed field for the NCAA tournament this year, something head coach Todd Dash and I talked about. The winner in the AAC conference tournament being held in Cincinnati Friday, Saturday, that may be the only bid the AAC gets.
The AAC, because there's only 16 at-large bids, AAC is probably on the outside looking in. And I think that's a disgrace, but that's the way it's going to be. Because you're going to see the more entitled programs who really didn't play anybody but themselves, you're going to see the bids get doled out that way, just because that's the way it is in Olympic sports. So we're going in it with the mindset that we have to win this championship to go on to the NCAA tournament.
No pressure there. UCF and Tulane, 2 o'clock Friday. Following that, Temple and Houston. Houston won the West. Could be a showdown, perhaps, between UCF, maybe Houston on Saturday. But interesting, isn't it, with a pared down field, preference for, even though they don't call it the Power 5 in volleyball, but there's certainly preference to those sorts of schools from those brand name conferences. And American, perhaps UCF lose one game, you don't make it. That'd be a tough pill to swallow on what has been a pretty good season for the Knights.
If I could stand right now, I guess I could stand right now, Trace. It would be awkward, though, because there'd just be some visuals no one wants to see here. But if I could stand, I would stand up for Coach Dagenet right here, because he said the thing that we all always think, right? He said the thing we want our coaches to say, and which was essentially, this is nonsense. We have a really good team. We have a good conference. We're competitive. We deserve the exact same chance, but they're going to give it to the Blue Bloods because that's what they do all the time. Yeah. And we all always say that, and we want our coaches to say that. And because they're too damn professional and they're too smart, and they know that it's kind of going to hurt their team more than help their team, they don't say that. So I applaud Coach Dagenet for coming out there and saying, hey, this is what's going to happen. It's not right. It's what's going to happen. And my team, we're just going to deal with what we can control, which is winning the conference tournament and getting into the tournament overall. So I applaud him for just that, I guess that overall fresh take, if you will, and that just that perspective of saying we have a job, we have a mission, we know what our margin for error is here, and it's 0, and we're just going to go win the whole thing. And by God, I hope they do it, right? Because I think that would be a fantastic story. It's a crime that team isn't ranked higher than they are. They've had a bunch of good matches. They've won a bunch of tough matches, and the AAC is a tough conference. And it's a shame that because they don't have the brand name of some of these other conferences, that you don't get the same recognition or looks that you should.
And remember, their only loss is in a hastily scheduled match in Tallahassee against Florida State. They were up 2-0, lost 3-2. That only came to be in the last moments there that they scheduled that after another match was dashed because of COVID. So while it would have been nice to have won that, it is their only blemish. So, we'll see. They have a good chance of winning the match with Tulane, and then we'll see. They haven't played Houston this year. So we'll see what happens. Good luck to the volleyball Knights, and they're going to need McKenna Melville and as well Offensive Player of the Week, Anne-Marie Watson. They play their game. And they're going to come out of that with a win. Now, this is probably the biggest disappointment of the spring is UCF baseball. Trying to make sense of them. They fell to 10-14 in what was a lackadaisical performance Tuesday. A loss to Jacksonville at UCF, but Jacksonville's like 6-15 now, and they beat UCF pretty handily. Again, UCF now in Tampa, up on the Cows 3-2. Greg Lovelady, head coach Greg Lovelady, usually very talkative in his post-game media sessions, was pretty direct, very short in his responses following Tuesday's loss. Let's listen to him.
Yeah, I mean, the same thing we tell them all the time. Tomorrow isn't promised. Yesterday has no bearing on what we do today. We just got to find ways to continue to get better, coach them better, and play better.
All right, we've got to pitch better, we got to hit better, we got to field better, We just got to be better. And
what was the question? I don't even. What was he responding to in that? I don't even know.
What do they got to do to be better? What do they got to do
go.
to get this thing turned around? You'd have liked to have been at least 500, 12-12 going into league play. Of course, what they've done up till now doesn't matter now that league play starts. They've got 4 in Tampa. That's the way the conference schedule is going to be set up. It's going to be 4 games. And so they've got the 3-2 here, bottom of the 8th over the Cows in Tampa. They have a doubleheader on Friday, and then they play a single game on Saturday. We're going to talk a little bit more now about the Knights, their early season struggles. Let's welcome in a former member of the UCF baseball team. He'll be, you remember him, left-hand pitcher from 2013 to 2016. Harry Hukari joins us. Harry, good to see you on the Sons of UCF Live.
Thanks, Trace and Adam. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
Before I ask what the hell is going on, because that's my opening question, okay, and you're going to break that down for us, just talk about your tenure with the Knights. It's been 5 years since you've been with the with the team. Does it seem like yesterday?
Yeah, it still does. Every time I go back, even with the renovations they did over at John Riana Park, getting the entire club level set up, still brings back memories. Wish I could still do it, but still love to follow the team and stay as engaged as possible.
Well, following them, what have you seen so far? They're struggling. They're 10-14. They've got the 3-2 lead here, bottom of the 8th in Tampa. But there have been some struggles, right? They have struggled to put runs in with runners in scoring position. They strike out a heck of a lot. Too early to panic, or should we be concerned?
I haven't got to watch as much as I would like to, but I have paid attention and followed. And ironically speaking, kind of looking at even the stats from last year, the hitting wise, they're actually in a lot of areas performing better, higher on base percentage, higher slug percentage. So they're doing more damage. I mean, so it's kind of ironic that, we look to panic at the numbers, but the big thing is, man, baseball is a very tough game, and and it's a very mental game. And sometimes when things don't go well, mentally people start to depress, and it's like they kind of go on that road of like, oh, here we go again. And I think happens a lot with younger guys, and there's a lot of really young, talented guys on this team, that I watch, and I think I kind of see a little bit, and I can definitely relate to that.
Harry, the Knights have lost a bunch of like tough, heartbreaking, late inning games. What do you attribute that to? Is that just inexperience? Is that just guys learning to play together, or is that just kind of the luck of the draw? It's just random baseball sometimes happens that way.
It's a little bit of everything. I think I have the numbers here. It's 2-7 this year in 1-run games. First and foremost, I think it just shows you how much they miss Jeff Hackinson. I mean, he was as good as I've seen. I think he's a big leaguer. Honestly, he's that good. So you miss him. You miss a guy like Trevor Holloway, who was a big piece of that rotation. But those late 1-run games, I think you contribute a lot of it to Jeff not being there. I think some of it's inexperience, some of it's also randomization, and weird things can happen in baseball. We all know that. But going forward, a lot of times those 1-run games do even out. So if they even out in conference play, that's obviously ideal, because that puts you in a great position to hopefully really make a strong run here in the second half.
You talk about the mental game. That seems to be so important. Some guys, they'll go through a slump or they won't be able to get an out. When you face some adversity, how did you work through it?
It's a tough question because everyone's different. For me personally, I try to get in a routine. Preparation builds confidence. I went through ruts, a lot of them in my career, finding like with strike zone or random things kind of happening. And, it's really tough when you're out there to mentally get through that. Cause you kind of go down the road of like, oh, here we go again, like dealing with this. It's frustrating. And you get a little tentative, like you get a little tighter, muscles kind of get tighter, and it makes it harder for you to focus and just to go out there and attack with your best. And getting in a prep, preparing, getting in a routine, and just like building that confidence of like, hey, I know I'm good. I'm not going to let these things keep happening. I'm not going to let this snowball out of control. And a lot of times like those one or two really good outings will turn everything around. And it's all of a sudden like you go on a crazy run where you throw 20 innings, get 1 run. So, you hope that for the guys going to conference play with a lot of these really talented arms that we have, and even with a lot of these talented guys in the lineup, even though, it seems like collectively they're still hitting very well, but, getting these talented guys in that swing and getting hot, kind of work out a lot of those problems.
We've talked a lot about obviously conference play coming up. How different is conference play from sort of non-conference play? Is you may know the teams better. Obviously, there's more rivalries. There's a little bit more juice. Is there a difference from the level of play and the level of response as a team when you sort of start playing that conference schedule?
Absolutely. Year to year it changes. I can remember, back in 2015, that year, our conference was incredibly good that year, and I think we were like the number 3 RPI conference that year. And, so every team was deep. I mean, UConn had guys, Houston had guys, East Carolina, USF was good. I mean, down the board. I mean, everyone could play. So you're getting everyone's best too, everyone's best arms. Cause a lot of times for us, we didn't play a lot of those like really highly touted weekend series early in the year. We played a lot of teams from up north. So you would get a lot of really good arms and everyone's best shot in conference. So it's definitely a different dynamic. I think what I've seen with Lovelady is that they do a lot of good non-conference scheduling. Going to Ole Miss, going to Auburn, getting those teams, back here, at UCF as well. Getting a lot of those really good weekend series does prepare you, but conference, there's definitely a dynamic to it because you're playing for a ring, you're playing for a trophy.
Because of COVID, the scheduling for the league games is 4-game series. So UCF's playing the rivals tonight, and then a doubleheader tomorrow, and then the single game Saturday. Moved up a day because of Easter on Sunday. What do you make of a 4-game conference series, and what does it take to come out of there with a split or 3 wins? On a 4-game series.
The easy answer, having depth on the mound. You can, if you can run out 4 starters, they can give you at least 5. It's a huge advantage. I mean, if you have 3 starters, they can give you 6 or 7. That's also a huge advantage. You can kind of piece together one of the other games. That it's definitely different. I mean, we didn't have that when I was, obviously playing. We were Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or on like an Easter weekend. We were Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So, I think the biggest thing you're going to see is that. From the offensive standpoint, you want to get in their bullpen early. If you can get that Friday night guy out early, it really sets you up for the weekend to go out there and to see a lot of their lower arms on the totem pole. Whereas, from UCF standpoint, obviously Colton, I was looking at watching the game here. That 6th inning, he came back out with 92 pitches and got through that inning. That was huge. Get an extra inning. 1 inning less that the bullpen has to worry about tonight because you got 2 tomorrow and you got 1 on Saturday. So you're looking to really get ride your starters as long as possible so you can save your arms. And then from an offense standpoint, getting in that bullpen early sets you up to get those 3 or 4 wins in a weekend.
Harry, tell us a little bit about Coach Lovelady. We played the clip as you were coming on with him, sounding definitely a little frustrated. What kind of coach would you describe? Is he a motivator? Is he somebody who obviously the team isn't playing as well as maybe we all expected? What kind of response, or what did you see from him when you were there in terms of how he would sort of handle the team in moments like this?
So actually, I never played for Lovelady. He came in the year after I graduated. From what I've heard, he's a great coach. Really does well getting the guys up, getting ready to go, getting ready to play. So I can't really relate to internally versus because I was obviously the different coach. But from what I've heard, he does a great job.
You mentioned Colton Gordon earlier. How good is this guy?
When you can throw 3 pitches for strikes and you're 89, 93 from the left side, and you can attack and you're confident in your stuff, you can win a lot of games at the college level. Especially in going on to the next level after that. But kind of reminds me a little bit of Eric Skoglund in terms of just the pitchability, the mix. It's pretty similar, and he's an impressive guy, and he has had a lot of success and he deserves it.
If Coach Lovelady called you and asked you to come in and talk to the team and sort of give them a pep talk and talk through what you think they need to do to sort of right the ship, if you will, for the rest of the season, what kind of advice would you give those guys?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is just trusting who they are, trusting their talent. A lot of these guys are a lot more talented than I am. So, I've seeing a lot of these really impressive arms, on the mound, and just telling them to be the same guy each day. Don't get too high. Don't get too low. It's a journey. You're going through a process. And when things are not going well, it's just like knowing who you are, knowing that you have really good stuff, or you're an elite player on a really good team, and you've had success before. So it's just kind of getting back to that success and that comfort zone of where you were when you were successful. If you can mentally put yourself in that position each day, even if you aren't there physically and the results aren't showing, I'm confident from my experiences that it usually evens out.
What led you to choosing UCF? What was that process like?
So, I was a kind of a late bloomer in terms of just kind of becoming a pitcher. I was actually a hitter a lot of it through high school, although I pitched a good amount. Kind of developed and started to throw pretty well from the left side, and started going to camps and getting looks on the travel circuit, and connected with Jeff Palumbo, who is now actually I think at ECU still with Cliff Godwin. He was also at UCF at the time, and they told me they wanted to come see me, and I went and threw for them, and Coach Rooney, and really threw really well, and made an instant connection with Coach Rooney and the coaching staff, Palumbo and Godwin, although they left right before I got to school. So, but that was a big part of it. Was just I think that's why recruiting is so important, is because if you can build a connection with your guys, and get the guys that you want on your team, whether it's if you're looking from an elite talent standpoint or just getting certain characteristics that you look for in guys, it's a huge advantage. So Rooney and Palumbo and Godwin really sold me on UCF, and there were other options, but I don't regret the choice at all. I love my time at UCF. I bleed black and gold. I tell everyone that ever asked me about UCF, I say, go there, go there, go there. It's a great place to be. It really is.
What do I guess? How do you think people view UCF from a baseball standpoint? Obviously, there's some tough schools in Florida. As you travel around and you tell people you went to UCF, what do people say to you? Where do you think people sort of think about UCF from a baseball standpoint?
Well, a lot of times since 2017, you get people like to give you the national championship football. Just, hey, you're building a brand. I tell them, hey, right. I always talk about building a brand and now everyone knows about UCF. So from a baseball standpoint, I was on the team in 12. I was a freshman in 12, and that team was obviously incredible. I mean, I think won 45 games in the regular season, or 45 games that year, and we're 3 games from Omaha. So some people kind of do remember that a little bit because that's Stony Brook run. When you talk to people that are familiar with baseball, because that was pretty crazy. I mean, that team was phenomenal. I think the big thing with the newer group is that you'd see a lot of football, just kind of jabs, but it's become a brand, and I think that's why a lot of people are excited about it, and you're getting a lot of people interested in the campus. And that's across all sports, not just baseball. So. It's just a great place, and I think people know that when they take their visits and go see it, or they go to camps, or they drop in while they're on at a travel tournament somewhere in Orlando. So I always tell people to go visit and look at it because it's a great campus.
As we wrap up, your assessment of the Knights now. Conference play underway in Tampa. They've got that slate ahead of them. It's a new season, a fresh start. You put all that behind you. You hope that you'll learn from it. What do they need to do to come out on top in the AAC?
Yeah, I mean, from kind of look at the numbers, looks like the American kind of across the board has had a rough start, other than East Carolina. So I think it's a situation where you really got to go on a run if you want to make the postseason. Probably got to win conference, or just have a really, really good, strong finish going into the conference tournament. I'd say the big things is your depth's going to be challenged from a pitching standpoint. So hopefully guys that are, these talented guys that hadn't had the results they've wanted so far, are able to, find their confidence and really go on that run. You need Colton to continue doing what he's doing. You need the offense to continue to just kind of putting up runs, staying focused on their, day-to-day tasks, getting in those bullpens early and often on the weekend. And then just flip the script on the one run games. You're 2-7 right now with 1-run games. If you can flip that, and get to 500 at the end of the year, I think if you go 7-2 and 1-run games on the back end, you're going to put yourself in a very good position to hopefully control your own destiny. But you just got to go out there and do it one pitch at a time, one day at a time, and don't leave anything out in the field.
Since fans last saw you, what have you been up to?
I worked in sports for a while with the Rays. COVID things happen, and now I'm actually working for Stryker. So I'm in medical, but I'm still highly engaged with UCF sports, everything across the board, and still make it out to games when I can, hoping to catch some probably next weekend. I think, is it Houston next weekend that's in town?
I think they're still on the road at Cincinnati.
At Cincinnati, okay.
Up.
Houston, I think, is the next weekend.
Yeah.
So that next home series, I'll probably make it out, and I'll probably, I think Coach Rooney's still at Houston as well, and I'll reach out to him just to connect with him as well, because he obviously gave me the opportunity at UCF, and I can't thank him enough for that.
Well, you'll find him at Harry Hikari 33 on Twitter. Harry, we appreciate you stopping by the Sons of UCF. Why don't we catch up with you maybe halfway through the conference slate and see if they listen to all your good advice tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Go Knights. All right. Harry Hikari. All right. So 3-2 UCF, bottom of the 8th, 2 outs. David Litchfield pitching for the Knights. War on I, 4 points up for grabs, and you'd like to get the victory over your rival, of course, and start things out and not waste a strong Colton Gordon start in Tampa.
Yeah, and obviously the War on I-4, we have a 30-15 lead right now. So what, 3 more points or something? I don't know what the point here is, Trace, but three. I think it's 3
points. 3 points each game. So with a 4-game series, that's 12 points up for grabs.
So there's some collateral on the line here. So I definitely, and Harry kind of touched on it. The randomness of baseball is just so varied that you can't think about it, right? And if they can win these 1-run games, I think that's the key right now. And do they have the veteran leadership? Do they have the pitching? Weird things like Florida State are going to happen. It's unique to baseball, I suppose. But if they can just figure out a way to control what they can control and pull those games out, and hopefully no better time to start that than against the Cows.
Yeah, when you're playing a 4-game series, you're going to need your bullpen, and they're going to need it over these 4 games for sure. So we're going to see the depth in that bullpen and if they can get the outs. So we will see. Major League Baseball starting today. 2 Knights make their starts this season in MLB. Dylan Moore remains with the Seattle Mariners, and my Chicago Cubs pitcher Danny Winkler. Cubs lose to the Pirates today, though, so they don't start off the season strong. But 2 Knights in Major League Baseball. Softball has just ended a road game at Tulsa. They dropped that one 5-1. This comes after the 4-game sweep of Houston to open at AAC play. Knights 24-7 now. So their first loss in AAC play. Ranked 24th, 22nd, depends on which poll you're looking at. There are a lot of polls in softball. Jada Cody, she's been on a tear. She's the D1 softball player of the week. Up next, they remain at Tulsa. They're doing the 4-game series as well. So they've got the doubleheader Friday and then the single game Saturday. Everything moved up a day because Easter on Sunday. So hopefully they turn that around. It has been a good start to the season, at least for softball, though they dropped that one in Tulsa. So Knights get out of the 8th. They go to the top of the 9th, leading the Cows 3-2. I'm not sure this one's going to end while we're still on, but you'll be able to catch the end of it after us on Plus. So I, on my flight here, got in the latest episode of the Sons of UCF, number 126, one of the bracket nominees, Devin Bush. That's his name. While I know the play, it's not a player that I knew much about. I'll tell you his story right off the top about making a highlight tape and driving that VHS tape up to Orlando, letting the coaches watch it, and while he and his dad waited, and then saying, yeah, we like you. We want you to come here. That sounds like a late 1990s story, maybe not a 2021 story.
Yeah, I mean, so spoiler alert to those who are out there, there was football before 2017 and 2013. And I just found it funny because today when you think about highlight tapes, I even asked him, I said, when you said you make a tape, today that's like you throw a huddle film on the internet, you put it on YouTube, it's up in 4 minutes and you're good to go. I mean, you literally are splicing VHS together. And he talked about how he had a student at his school put it together. But that's the beauty of being involved with UCF and how much, Mike and I love doing the show is that there are so many people along the way that have laid the foundation for UCF. Names that you know, names that you have jerseys for, like I have behind me here. But there are so many guys who have been a part of the program who had contributions. You know, maybe it's one game, maybe it's one play. It's cool when you catch up with somebody like David, who can, you know, kind of share that experience and what that was like. He played for G. McDowell, and again, he's probably best known for this play right here, Trey. So I'll play it for you now. This is from Mike's just fantastic effort around the greatest plays in UCF history. You see his interception. He says he's in bounds here, by the way. I don't know if I buy that, but he says he's in bounds there, and he read the play the entire time, which you know, this is a story of how he talked about, hey, I knew what the quarterback was doing. I kind of played a little bit of jockeying with him at the line of scrimmage, and I kind of baited him into it a little bit. Those are the cool stories that you see, man. And while David didn't have necessarily the career that gets you a jersey hanging behind somebody in a wall here, that one play, you know, it's 20 years ago, Trace, and it's one play. And your point, it's one player who maybe wasn't the most well-known name, and he made it to the Sweet 16 with that play. And there's a lot of plays in UCF history, and to get that far, again, just shows you how much some of these guys who, yeah, they didn't have the illustrious career of some others, but everybody who was here before these guys has laid a brick someplace, and David Bush is no exception.
If he doesn't make that play, maybe the outcome of that game and all sorts of other things hypothetically change, right?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously that play is the one of the bigger plays in that game. It's funny. We had 3 plays from that game in Mike's bracket. So we had the kick from Javier Berlegi, the Darren Hinshaw helmet popping off touchdown, and the Bush INT. They all made it to the Sweet 16. And that's a seminal game in UCF history. And if you're a Knight fan, even if you're kind of a newer Knight fan, that's one of those games that, you know, if you went there, you remember where you were, Trace. You remember where you were there, right? Like, so
I was
everybody
there.
Everybody remembers, if you went to school in that time, where you were when you heard that we beat Bama. And so that's just one of those moments. And one of the cool things about being a part of a school like UCF that's young like this is you get to remember those things, right? You know, Florida's biggest win was 1867. Like, no one's alive from that now. So being a part of like a young program like this is actually really cool. And to get to talk to guys who are part of things like that is even better.
Well, Coach Malzahn spoke at the media availability Saturday that earlier in the week he had met UCF's first head football coach. I don't think you can say that at Michigan or Penn State or any other number of schools, right? That you could meet and talk with UCF's first head football coach goes to show you just how young the program is. But the interview with David Bush, I really enjoyed. I think in large part because he's not a guy I knew a whole lot about. Right. Yeah. So some guys, you know, a lot about, you've heard a lot about, but I found him to be very interesting. Check that out. Number 126, wherever you get your downloadable content. And as you mentioned, the brackets, Final Four, about what I would expect out of the Final Four.
Yeah, Nelson, actually, we got some questions here. I'll go with one from Nelson. Asked if we're happy with the Final Four. He would replace Bortles to Godfrey with the kick. Otherwise, he thinks it's fantastic. The only 2 seed that broke in there was the Hale Perryman. But other than that, it's the plays that you would expect. And you know, I think it's Mike Hughes's a tournament to lose. I think the J.J. Wharton catch is certainly on his heels, but I think it's probably Mike Hughes's to lose. And you can't argue with that, right? I mean, you just can't argue with that play. But I think overall, you got what you expected. I think if there's one thing that, to answer your question, Nelson, am I happy with the Final Four? I think it's what you thought. I think the thing I like the most, Trace, and you have the same sort of lean with this, is a lot of the quote unquote older plays you saw advancing in this tournament, which I thought was really cool. That there are some people who remember some of those things and sort of the nod to history. I thought that was great. That I thought Franco Grillo was going to get just smashed in the first round, but he wins. And so while Bobby Joe Plain didn't necessarily have the same fate with the first ever TD in UCF history, I do think it's cool that some of these older, quote unquote, older plays were able to survive for such a long time.
Yeah, you know what? For older fans, Nelson, shout out to Nelson. It's a trip down memory lane to look back at plays that maybe you haven't seen as much as more recent ones. And I think for a lot of fans that discovered the Knights from 2017 to the present, it's been an opportunity to appreciate. You know, there have been great moments in the past too. There have been successful teams, that 2013 team, other teams. One of the things you talked about with David was it should have been a bowl team in the late 90s is what
98,
should have
98,
happened.
yep.
That should have been a bowl year. And it makes us appreciate that while the program may not be very old, there have been great moments. And I thank Mike for that. Mike poured himself into this. There have been a lot of brackets. It's March now, April Madness, and there's all sorts of things. Mike and I not quite on the winning side of another bracket competition going on this week, but it's all in good fun. Now, how Mike tops this, I'm not quite sure. I know he wants to get a couple of
Mike will be
2021 plays in there, but even if a couple of 2021 plays rival. I don't know how, maybe just shaking up the brackets because, we get used to seeing Kentucky and Duke and North Carolina, and we still tune into March Madness. So, maybe shaking up the brackets and changing up the mix of plays might give us an opportunity to see a different bracket a year from now. But great work by Mike.
I've known Mike for 15, 18 years now. He's one and done. He's Kentucky basketball. He's going to be one and done on this one. There is no doubt. This is an interesting question from Michael Casey. Probably not one we have time to answer tonight, Trace. Maybe we owe him an answer next week. Most underrated player in UCF history. Great question, Michael. I don't know that I could come up with that in less than 30 seconds here because there's probably so many options on that too. But that's a really good question to ponder for a future show.
That is a really good one. If we're playing recency bias, right, and it was a participant in Pro Day, not one name we talked about, I just always have thought I'm very fond of Otis Anderson, just in all of the different ways he's contributed. I don't think he's going to be a future UCF Hall of Famer, but he's the kind of guy that did so many things good for UCF. Whether that falls into the category of underrated, just off the top of my head, I'm not sure. But I like that question. Maybe we'll toss that out. Lonely Bumblebee with Jeff Godfrey. He's an interesting name. Where are we at on that? Do we have the
efforting? My the name that came to mind when I saw Michael's question, with very little information to think about, was Joshua Reese. I don't know why I feel like he had a lot of big catches. He was just one of those guys who blocked downfield. That was the name that came to mind. But we will certainly ponder that. And Godfrey's still efforting that. To be fair to Jeff Godfrey, I still have. I can throw this up. Did I get rid of it? I think I may still have the Have You Seen Me? Yeah, there it is on the top right corner of your screen. He was on episode 21 of the Sons of UCF, which none of you can hear now, but don't worry, we're working on that. So Jeff was more than courteous with his time. If you want to go in the Wayback Machine and hit some Sons of UCF history, Godfrey was our first ever player interview. So if there's one thing, hopefully Mike and I have done well over our time, Trace, is interview some players, and Jeff Godfrey was the first ever. So you will win maybe a cocktail from a friend at the Sons of UCF trivia contest. Not that that's happening, but if it did, kudos to you.
I would have liked to have heard Michael Casey's answer on that provocative question. He's pulling the UCF Mike card of asking a question, but not providing an answer.
He might still be listening. We can filibuster for a second and see if we can get Michael Casey to get back in the chat here and give us an answer.
So the four
yes,
plays.
He did pull, hold on. He's in. And that's a good answer, by the way. Alex Haynes is a really good answer, Michael Casey. I don't know who Mike's not here, but if Mike was here, he'd give you a hat, Michael Casey, too. So we'll see if we can work that out. But that's actually a really good answer. Alex Haynes, probably one of my favorite players. And if for whatever reason I ever end up in jail, it'll be because I've stalked Alex Haynes so many times to get him on the show, and he's never responded, that there's probably some form of a restraining order coming my way, because I'd love to have him on the show. He was one of my favorite players, number 4 for UCF, just a hard runner. We've never been able to secure him. And Lonely Bumblebee is in on that answer as well. So Alex Haynes, Adam, restraining order probably coming soon.
And because he keeps a low profile, his legend only grows within my face, Alex Haynes, wherever you are. All right, we will sign off. I'll mention it's top of the 9th, UCF leading the Cows 3-2. You can catch the end of that on ESPN+. Watch at UCF Mike 1 for the latest brackets. The final 4 plays. It may seem complete that we know who's going to win, but you can't be for sure as Adam scrolls across some of the news and notes from the other sports. Senior night for men's soccer Friday. Big volleyball matches. A match for UCF Friday in this conference tournament. We want to thank Harry Hikari for joining us to talk a little UCF baseball. Hopefully they get a win when he has joined us. And I got to do some training out here. We got that 5K right around the corner. Jan and Britt and I, Jan and Britt, by the way, deserve to win the other bracket, the Twitter Mafia bracket. So we are all behind Jan and Britt. A big shout out to them. And we wish Mike well. We hope to see him and you back here as we get ready for the spring game. And maybe we'll ask Michael's provocative question during the week on Twitter and see what other answers come to mind. So for Adam, Trey Strelko here. Go Knights!
Charge on.